My name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I've started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank. I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Stairway to Redemption, a podcast about addiction and recovery. Today, my guest is Kimberly Clark. She's a veteran, a author, a survivor. So many labels attached to you. Did I get all of them? Do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a wonderful opportunity to be your guest. My name is Kimberly Clark. I'm a motivational speaker, published author, certified peer support specialist, and CEO of Motivation from the Heart LLC.
Okay, Motivation from the Heart LLC. I like that name. That's a dope ass, name for a company, Motivation Heart. Yeah. Yeah. So usually, I like to start my podcast with a segment called State of the Mind Address. Basically, it's like, how do you feel this week? What's going on in your life lately? Something, besides, oh, I'm just doing well, everything is fine. Like something deeper than that.
Okay. I think I'm on the right path. I think that, God honestly was waiting on me to get sober. I had a counselor in my last rehab tell me the world is waiting on you. And I couldn't wrap my head around that really. But as soon as I got sober, so many doors have been opening for me. And I believe that I'm following my passion. I'm following my purpose. I'm on the right track. And so I'm just taking it step by step and day by day
Oh,
in a
okay.
happy way.
Glad to hear that, because, so recovery is definitely not like a final destination. It's like it's a long, it's a journey,
Right.
it's a process. Yeah, so let's start by, do you want to tell us your story? You have a captivating story. Like I said, you're a veteran. You're also a survivor of, sexual assault. And I've been reading your book, by the way. I like it. I haven't finished it. I'm halfway through
Awesome.
it. Yeah, it's very I mean, there's a lot to impact. So I'm gonna have questions, but I want our audience to know you more and to know what you went through. So do you mind, giving us your story?
No, I don't mind at all. Do
Mhm.
not mind at all. So I guess, I'll give kind of like the short slash medium version. So, give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. But I grew up in a loving and supportive family. Um, no, but I also grew up with, low self esteem, not feeling like I was enough. Um, I didn't like the skin that I was in at all. I always wanted to change something. Um, I also grew up having, I wouldn't call it, it wasn't like rape or molestation or anything like that. It was more sexual assault, maybe, or physical assault. I had family members, touch me in inappropriate ways, which actually like fed into my low self esteem, because I wanted to be liked and I was a people pleaser and I wanted to, I wanted everybody to like me, and so I didn't know how to say no because of that. Even when there were things I did not want to do, I did not know how to say no. And so I grew up in a really, really small town. Around high school time, we moved to the city, Shreveport, Louisiana. I was doing excellent. I've always done excellence in school as far as, being intelligent, extremely good, and book smart. And so, excuse me. And so I had a scholarship for debate. I was on the debate team. I had a scholarship for debate to go to University of Louisiana Monroe. I was going to do that, and then I talked to this doggone recruiter, and the recruiter convinced me to go to the Navy instead. And so I don't know if you guys know, but recruiters lie a lot. They tell you what you want to hear so that you can join the military. And so that's what I did. I believed in it, and I wanted to travel, go to school, work at the same time, and also just wear the uniform. I thought the uniform was, was awesome looking, and I wanted to wear it. And so that's what I did. I went to basic training in Chicago, Illinois, at Great Lakes. Graduated on time. I had to lose like 40 pounds, but I lost it in time. Lost the weight. The last week of basic training, I got orders to Guam. I was super excited about that. Came home for like 2 weeks before I was going to my first duty station, and man, I must have worn my uniform like every day for like the whole 2 weeks, and finally got to Guam. The flight from Louisiana to Guam was about 24 hours, close to 24 hours. Yeah, from Louisiana to Houston, from Houston to California, then from California to was it Tokyo, and then Tokyo to Guam. I think that's how it went, something like that. But yeah, it was a really 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 long plane ride. So I got to Guam, the most beautiful place I've ever been, and I've been a lot of places, so it's definitely the most beautiful place. I loved it, loved my job, loved everything about it. I started making friends and stuff like that, and one night we was out drinking. I think I got like the most drunk I'd ever been up to that point, and a friend of mine was supposed to be a friend of mine raped me. And so that day changed everything. That day changed who I was. That day changed the whole trajectory of my life. That day, changed how I looked at myself, how I looked at the world. It was like all of a sudden the world was more clear. Like, oh my God, like there are bad people in the world. It was almost like an aha moment. Like everybody's not good. Yeah, I always wanted to see the best in people, and on that day, that changed. And so I became depressed. I became anxious. I became suicidal, and so I attempted suicide. I took 145 pills in an attempt to take my life. And only by the grace of God that somebody found me in my barracks, another friend of mine, and got me to the hospital. And from then, I was medevac back to San Diego, California. From San Diego, I got a medical discharge from the Navy after being diagnosed with PTSD, yeah, post traumatic stress disorder. And then I got back to Louisiana, and wow, what a story came from just that one day coming back from Louisiana. So I came back broken, full of fear, looking for ways to cope with the sexual trauma I just endured in Guam. I went out partying with some family members, riding around drinking, listening to music, and we ended up at my cousin's boyfriend's house. And so my cousin's boyfriend, and my aunt were all in the kitchen smoking something off of a can. And all I can remember is, the constant flickering of a lighter. And so I didn't know anything about drugs back then. That was completely new to me, right? Because I had been sheltered growing up. And so I I asked my aunt, I'm like, hey, what's that? And she was like, baby, this is crack cocaine. And the way she introduced me to it was like I was being introduced to a person. And so I put the can up to my nose because I didn't know what I was doing. And then my cousin's boyfriend corrected me and put it up to my mouth. And so I took the very first hit for the first time ever. And I was finally numb. I couldn't feel anything. I was finally free in my mind. That's what it felt like. But no matter how hard I chased that high, I never got that high again. And I didn't know the danger that was waiting for me while I did either. And so that was the very first day that I ever tried any drugs, and it happened to be crack cocaine. And I believe that from the very first hit, I was hooked because I started going to look for it on my own after that. I started, noticing the people who did it or noticing the people who could help me find it, going out looking for it on my own, all of it there. And that started a 10-year addiction. I was, over the course of 10 years, I was in and out of jail. At one point, in and out of rehab, in and out of psychiatric unit. I was looking for any and every way to cope. In the year 2020 alone, I was hit in the back of the head twice, in an attempt to take my life. I was given bad drugs twice in an attempt to take my life. And one of those times put me on life support for 2 days. I wrecked my truck. My truck flipped 7 times and I walked out of it without a scratch. And it's only by the grace of God. That was 2020 alone. So imagine 10 years, of that type of lifestyle. And I'm not hood, right? I didn't know nothing about the game, nothing about, because there's a lifestyle associated with addiction, and that lifestyle is dangerous. And if you don't know the street life, if you don't know the ways of the street, the games of the street, the rules of the street, you will be taken advantage of and you will be lost. And that's how I was. I was lost. I was taken advantage of. I was manipulated because I'm country and I'm not hood, right? And I had to learn the game as I went along, you know? And so, yeah, that put me out there with predators, with people who did not care. They were cutthroat. I learned a lot about me, about myself, about who I was, also who I did not want to be. And I knew I did not want to be somebody who manipulated and took advantage of other people. I got convicted about stuff like that. I remember stealing a piece of candy when I was a child and felt so bad. So I knew I could not survive in the addict life. And so I tried everything that I could, to get out of that lifestyle. But until I surrendered, my will and my ways, I could not be free from it. I had to face me. I had to face my traumas, my childhood traumas, the military sexual trauma, the low self-esteem, the anxiety, the depression. I had to face all of those things head on, face to face, accept them, know what my triggers were, and literally take it one step at a time. I know that sounds so cliche, and we hear that all the time, is to take it one day at a time, one step at a time. But that's literally how we got to do it. Because if we think too far ahead, we're going to overwhelm ourselves. And when we overwhelm, we go out and use, get high, and get drunk. So, yeah, I spent 10 years in active addiction, from 22 to 32. I'm 33 years old now, and I'll have 2 years sober January 3rd. And
congrats. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, man. I took my life back, and I'm committed to helping other people do the same thing.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much for telling your story. It's a very poignant story. There are definitely more details in the book. I'm going to recommend people reading the book. But yeah, if you don't mind me diving in details, I noticed that in the book you said that you were a people pleaser because you always felt like you were not physically attractive and you were seeking acceptance and validation. So pleasing people and getting that attention from others push you not setting up your boundaries, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, you absolutely understood correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any boundaries, right? And I didn't know how to set healthy boundaries because I didn't love me. So there was nothing healthy about me emotionally and spiritually. So how would I be able to set boundaries? And that's what my life needed. That's what I lacked. Boundaries, healthy goals, and healthy standards.
Yeah, even a sentence when somebody tells you you look like your dad, you took it as I'm ugly. I'm like, what? When I read that, I was like, oh my God, a lot of girls look like their daddy. What the hell? That's that just show once somebody has low self-esteem, it's easy to to be manipulated, to be like, because at the end of the day, we still, we are human beings. We look for comfort and stuff, comfort and
Right.
acceptance and validation, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Um, but yeah, to go back to Guam, I can tell that at Guam, for once, you felt like there's a passage in a book where you said like you felt alive, you felt like you had a purpose, and then it was taken away by friends, because the things with sexual assault most of the time is from somebody we know, and reading from it, you even had a hard time accepting it, that. The military life was going to be over for you because obviously they were going to discharge you medically for attempting suicide, and also
Right.
what happened on that part, like were you able to find closure? Was the guy like reprimanded? Was he fired from the Can you elaborate more on that part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. We went through trial. I ended up having to talk to NCIS every day
Who's the
for
NCIS? Can you say NCIS?
NCIS is NCIS, the Navy Crime Scene Investigation.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
And so,
I thought that was the TV show, like NCIS.
Navy Crime Investigation.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, it's like the TV show, but there actually is an NCIS in the actual Navy too.
Really?
So, and those are the people that I had to talk to.
Oh, okay.
Actually, yeah.
Oh, all right.
That's who I had to talk to. Yeah, every day for months I had to talk to them. They put a wire on me to go talk to him to try to get him to confess, and he never did. They had me call him with the phone line tapped. He never did confess. And so when I got medevaced back to San Diego, we did like a video conference trial. He ended up getting away with it because it was alcohol involved. And so they were like letting me know everywhere that he went. Like if he went to a different command or if he got stationed somewhere else, they would let me know that by letter, or someone would call me or whatever. And they stopped. They did that for a few years, but they stopped. As far as me being in the Navy and having to, knowing that I could have stayed in and retired, but I wasn't allowed to, and that was taken away from me. That was devastating for me because I wanted to do 20 years in the Navy. And when they first medevaced me back to the States, I didn't know they were going to discharge me. I thought that they would just, I was going there for medical reasons, and then I was going back to Guam. For some reason, that's what I thought. But I didn't know how serious of a situation I was in. I didn't know how serious of a mental health crisis that I was in either. And so, yeah, that devastated me. And, I didn't have no choice but to accept it because, when they medical discharged me, that was it. When you get diagnosed with PTSD, they have to discharge you. Like any type of mental health thing. Cause go ahead.
Because they don't want to compound on it. Like you're gonna probably be exposed to more if you are like deployed or something. So sorry, but I don't want to use the term broken, but for lack of better vocabulary, they're not gonna send a broken soldier to war, or somebody who's already has issues. It's for their protection.
Yeah.
And it's to protect also themselves, I believe. Like it's easier for
Mostly
them to themselves. Yeah, they would rather not deal with you than like trying to fix you because of what happened on their own, on their own barracks, on their own property, with their own soldier. I mean, like, who am I to say? But like the military, like, what's the term? Military sexual assault. Like, there's a term, trauma. Yeah, MST. Yeah, MST. Yeah, like it's when I was in inpatient, the veterans who had the trauma program, I had the chance to share a class with them. And some of them are like, the things that you think that the military will be like a safe place, but sometimes you have bad elements, like you open, like, you'll want to see the good on people, but like not everybody is good, has good intentions, and it's hard to realize and to come to terms with. So like when you went back to Louisiana, I think to Castor, right? Where you from?
Yeah,
And you moved
yeah,
to you had the chance to go to Temple, Texas. That's where you met like the people in the room, AA, and you met that
yeah,
very powerful character, Ash. I have a lot of questions about
yeah.
Ash, who took you under his wing,
Okay.
also your mentor. But like, yeah, please develop that story. So who was Ash?
Yeah. Ash was a very instrumental person in my life,
Mm-hmm.
not in a good way.
Yeah.
Um, I was introduced to AA and NA when I went to Temple, Texas. And Temple, Texas was the first time I ever went to rehab. And so I went to rehab. I went to like an MST program
Mm-hmm.
at the VA domiciliary out there. And, met with it was just a program for women, but it was housed at a domiciliary where there were men and women. So me and this girl get into it, and they're starting to kick me out the program. And so I went to a meeting that night. I was crying. I'm like, man, I don't want to leave because if I leave, I ain't finished getting my treatment yet. I don't want to go back out there because at that point it was my first time, so I hadn't really got to the homelessness, the promiscuity, all that kind of stuff. I hadn't dealt with it yet. I was just using, you know what I mean? But I was a functioning user, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. And so I was crying and I met this lady and she was like, hey, once you talk to this guy, he got a lot of pull at the VA. He can get you to stay. So I went, cried to this dude named Ash, right? Cried to him. He was like, oh, don't worry about it. He got my face, holding my face, wiping my tears. And I'm like, man, he really has my back. And so the next day he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He talked to the person that was over domiciliary, got me to stay. And so me and him was keeping in touch after that. And so like he became my sponsor. I didn't know at the time, that a male is not supposed to have a female sponsee and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa, you know, for reasons such as my situation.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he became my sponsor, my mentor, my friend, eventually my lover. Um, I hadn't been with many men in my life at that point. Um, there was a time, I was just with females. I went through, I was bisexual at one point in my life, but I was with mostly females, and
Mm-hmm.
he knew that or whatever, and so he started, telling me these sweet nothings and that he loved me and that God put him in my life. God brought us together. God
Oh
wants us to
man.
be together. God wants
Yeah.
us, yeah, God wants us to have a child. God wants me to have his child. And he started he started making me feel like God was orchestrating that relationship. And I was, young. I was 19, 20 years old. I was young enough to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I was manipulated. I was taken advantage of. I fell in love with him, and I thought that he was in love with me as well. And so um, I ended up getting an apartment. I was staying with some friends at that point, and I ended up getting an apartment just so we could be together. It was pretty much my first love. And so, yeah, I ended up doing something. I don't know. It was something happened, and he was, like we can't be together no more. I thought it was because I wouldn't face my trauma, and so I called my mom one night, called him on three-way, told her about the childhood trauma. She
The
didn't know
one you
nothing
mentioned,
about,
yeah, at the
just so I
beginning.
could,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, with family members. And I told her about that with him on the other line, thinking that if I told my mom, he would want me back, right? And then come to find out, he was married the whole time. And so what he would do is he would pick arguments with his wife or whoever she was before the meetings that I was going to, so that if he knew I was gonna be there, he would pick fights with her so she wouldn't come, so we wouldn't meet up. And so he would do that every time we would have a meeting, and he would, come pick me up for the meetings and stuff like that. And people in the meeting knew how he was. They didn't say anything about it. I even called some of the women after, we broke up to for help, man, for compassion.
Yeah.
And they turned on me.
What?
They were like,
How
okay,
is that possible? Like,
they,
what kind of meeting was
exactly.
that? Like,
They were sick. They were sick. That whole meeting house was sick. I'm talking about these women, all these women sleeping with everybody, all these men sleeping with everybody, all these men preying on newcomers, all this kind of stuff going on. Them people were sick, and I didn't even know the danger that I walked up on in Temple, Texas. I did not. Yep. So he used me, abused me, threw me out. The meeting basically threw me out. You know what I mean? I came for them. I came to them for help.
yeah.
For compassion, for camaraderie. Like, help me. Like this wasn't my fault. I was swindled. Like, I was the one used. But
Yeah.
I want to stay clean. I don't want to use behind me. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh well, we don't want to hear about this. I'm talking about people I was talking to every day.
Yeah.
My so-called best friends
Oh
turning
my
their back
God.
on me.
So was it like
For yeah,
so that was your home group and also was that the only AA meeting you were going to? So you didn't had I
yeah,
don't know, did it ever cross your mind, for example, to go to different meetings to see if all like there were the energy on you, the power they had on you was so strong that you didn't feel the need to explore any other group. So was that like
yeah. I didn't feel the need to explore anything else.
okay?
I felt like I had my friends there. I had everything that I needed there. I had my sponsor. I had the people I talked to every day. And I always had a ride to the thing because I didn't have a
Hmm.
vehicle or anything at that point. I just had that apartment.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I didn't. No, I didn't want to go anywhere else. That's all I knew.
So what's then your now that happened in your life that you fall into a bad AA and basically you experience the worst thing that could happen in AA? What's your take on it? Do you still go to AA? Do you use something else like as your recovery
I,
tool?
d- I did for a while, but I've had so many bad experiences in AA. And like I told, one of my sponsors something personal about me, and she told her husband, and her husband told other people in the room, and it was something deeply personal. I've just had so many bad experiences, and in my experience, people have been just extremely messy, full of drama, full of chaos. Everybody got something going on in those rooms. And they're always so predatory to newcomers and predatory to our spongeful minds, because when we first get in recovery, we're like sponges. We're trying to get all the information we
Yeah.
can. And they want us to believe what they want us to believe. You know what I mean? And so AA was a downfall for me. Relationships were a downfall for me. A lot of times that I relapsed was behind relationships, and behind relationships I found in AA and NA. And so what I did was I tried something different, and I tried the biblical 12 steps, like Celebrate Recovery, that, and I tried, going to church and actually having a relationship with God. Because I mean, the way I see it, and, people don't have to agree, is the 12 steps are meant to get you to a relationship with God, get you closer to God, and get you to find who you are as a person. And
Okay.
so I felt like, you know what, I'm gonna just go to God myself. I'm gonna go to God for me,
Okay.
and that's what I did, and that's what worked.
So like
Yeah,
church works for you, right? You said.
right,
Okay,
exactly.
so like was that like a specific church that had like an addiction recovery program, or like was it something that you built on yourself? Like you took the book and you took the Bible and you combined both. Like what was the approach?
Well, it was a Bible, of course, and um, going, listening, and applying, right? Because we can have all the knowledge in the world without
Mhm.
application, it ain't nothing, right?
Okay.
That, and as well as EMDR therapy. When I started doing EMDR therapy combined with the biblical 12 step,
Uh-huh.
that was a game changer. That
For
changed
our
everything.
for our audience, could you describe what EMDR is? It's been getting very popular, but I just want for somebody who doesn't know what those acronym means. Could you describe what EMDR therapy is?
Absolutely. So EMDR therapy is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. it's basically where, we reprogram our mind to not be so, I I guess, for the trauma to not be so intense when we're triggered by it or when we think about it. And so what happens in the sessions is you list all your traumas and you go through them one by one. So you take this one trauma while your counselor or whoever is EMDR qualified, because you have
Mm-hmm.
to have a counselor that's EMDR certified. It's like a green, it's like a light, like a light bar, to where this light is going from left to right, from left to right. And while your eyes are following this green light from left to right to left to right, you're answering a series of questions while your counselor is going over a series of something to do with that specific trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, I don't know the real science of this, but because somehow when you think about a trauma and your movement is from left to right, left to right, left to right in a consistent space, it reprograms your brain, it rewires your brain. So you don't have to feel so intense whenever you think about the trauma. And that's I've done. I did EMDR for over a year, and I literally went through every last one of my traumas in EMDR in an EMDR space, and it clicked. It
No.
worked. It rewired.
So
Yeah,
that's definitely good for our audience to know that the EMDR is for those who suffer from PTSD, heavy trauma. That's a path to consider it. How did you fell in touch with it? How did you discover it? Do you still use the resources through the VA? Like, do you still go to the VA? Do they still help you? Because I don't know. I read in a book that you were out on disability, so that you still get benefits from the VA, right?
I do. I'm 100% service connected with the VA,
Okay.
but I do some stuff with the VA, like primary care and stuff like that. But the counseling, I do it outside of the VA, but the VA pays for it. It's called community care.
Mm-hmm.
If the VA doesn't offer something in your specific city, then
Mm-hmm.
they'll pay for you to go out into the community and get it. And so I do my EMDR therapy through, a community care provider.
Okay. Speaking of community care provider, how hard was it for you to find um the right provider or the right therapist? Like, did you had, because full disclosure, you're a woman of color. Do you still identify yourself as bisexual, or are you part of the LGBTQ community, or?
No, I'm straight.
Okay. So
Yeah.
because in the book you have, you explained that you had like you said, like with the book that uh, you were bi at the moment, and that so I was wondering if you are part of the community. So because for people of color, people who are part of the LGBTQ community, it's sometimes hard to find people who identify to themselves in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a hard
Right.
time finding the right therapist because of some of the trauma they talk, and they feel like the therapist doesn't know what they're talking about. How was it for you to
Right.
find
Right.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the VA, the one here in Shreveport, Louisiana, they only had a male. The only provider they had that was EMDR certified was
Mm-hmm.
a male provider.
Okay.
And I gave him, I knew it wasn't going to work, but I gave him a chance anyway. And the first two sessions,
Yeah.
we did not click. I did not like him. I didn't like his attitude. It didn't click. Some people you click with and some people you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew I was not going to click with him. Right. And so, but luckily I got a community care provider. She's an African American woman.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Christian woman as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she's worked with veterans for over 20 years.
Okay.
And so she understood every aspect of everything I needed her to understand. So I kind of, I got grace on that one to find her.
All right. Yeah, that's good. So because I just recently learned that I'm still in the lookout, looking for a therapist, or a full time, primary therapist, because right now I'm doing an outpatient program, and I just got to step down in the clinic program. So I still do outpatient once hour. What? 5 times a week, 1 hour at a time. So like I still have that outpatient counselor that I can talk to, but when it's gonna be over, I'm gonna have to like find a community provider basically. So I wanted to know your input in like how hard it is for us people of color minorities to find, because I try those apps, Talkspace, or like but those apps that online providers and stuff, and sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't click for me. I don't need to. I would like your input on this. How important is it for you to relate when you tell your story or you want somebody to listen to you to give advice? How important is it for you for them to be able to empathize, to have experienced the same thing? Or for you, it's just, I don't know, they just need to understand, but they don't have to have lived the same path. What's your input on that?
I think a lot of times people, you don't have to go through the same situation for you to understand from my situation or for you to learn from my situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So trauma is trauma, right? We don't have to go through the same traumas for us to have the same emotion behind trauma. People relate to emotion rather than, specific events. And so if I speak on the emotions I felt throughout that trauma, people gonna relate to that. Instead of me saying such and such happened to me when I was a kid, I can talk about the feelings I had behind it. And people gonna relate to those feelings because we all have the same feelings, pretty much the same feelings when it comes to trauma. And so if we talk about how abandoned we felt or rejected we felt or how belittled we felt, or how anxious and how depressed we felt, we gonna relate to that because we understand it. We understand feeling ashamed and feeling guilty and having that low self-esteem. But we don't, when we talk about the feelings behind it, that's what people relate to. And so that's how the more real, transparent, and vulnerable you are, the more people gonna relate to you. Whether they, you can be somebody who never went to college, never did anything, like never went to the military, nothing like that, and go talk to a room full of corporate people because you didn't have some traumatic things happen in your life, but you grew from it, you healed from it. And you can tell those same corporate American people how to heal and how to grow from it without having to have experienced what they experienced. So as long as you be open, honest, transparent, and real and vulnerable, you'll be able to relate to anybody.
That's speak a lot to like I think you touched the point of acceptance and self forgiveness. Like I can tell right now that like you mentioned the word guilt before, feeling guilty, but like do you remember exactly when you forgave yourself, you reached that point? Or like I don't know, I don't know if it's like it was a day, a summer day, a rainy day or something, but do you remember how you felt when you'd be like, oh, I'm finally at peace with myself. I accept, that what happened at Guam. I accept that I'm not going to go there. I accept that AA was a bad experience, but like, it's not on me anymore. Like, and now I can tell you more. Do you remember the moment you realized that, like what happened until, yeah.
Yeah, when I was able to be honest about it, not just, in secret, but be totally transparent about the things that happened to me, I knew that I was free from it. Because if you can talk about something that happened to you that you were ashamed of at one point in your life, but now you can talk about it from a place of power and be like, hey, this is what happened to me. But more importantly, this is what I learned from it. Then that's when you take your power back. Because when you're ashamed of something, you don't say anything about it. And that's how the shame keeps power because you don't talk about it. But when we talk about it, we trump that power because that's how we take ours back. I'm talking about it because I'm gonna help others heal from it. I'm gonna help others grow from it, right? Even if you're not, specifically intending on helping others grow from it, you talking about it. That's how you take your power back. When I was able to be honest about it, when I was able to be open about it, I knew then that I took that power back, that I took my mind back. Because by all right, anybody who's ever went through addiction, alcoholism, we had every right to lose our mind,
Yeah.
every right, but we did not. And so talking about that, that's what people understand. That's what people relate to.
Oh, that's a beautifully answered. And like, was it fair to say that like writing a book about your life was a kind of catharsis to reach that point? I'm sure like once the book was published or when you write that last sentence, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm good now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, writing a book was a game changer. I
Yeah.
recommend anybody do it. Yeah, and I'll help. I can help. Some people they're like, I can say it, but I don't know how to write it. And I'm like, okay. And so I met a few people like that, and I've helped them write their books. And so I do extend a hand if anybody want to do that. But definitely, writing a book is the game changer. It opens so many doors for you. When I tell you that, not only is it healing and it's freeing to actually write your story, from your point of view, from your truth, just write it the way you see it, write it the way you feel it. It opens so many doors. I didn't even know I wanted to speak professionally until I wrote my book. I didn't know I wanted to be a coach until I wrote my book. I didn't even know I could until I wrote my book.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. And so I definitely recommend writing your story. Even if you never publish it, write your story.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, so that's it for my questions. I think I hit it. Now I would like to open the floor to you. If you'd like to talk about what you do now, like what's your mission, or what's the company you create, like how is it now that you do service because you have your own platform now? Do you want to like expand on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So motivation from the heart, it's it's motivational speaking, but it's also coaching, right? So I am a coach. I help women who have, experienced sexual trauma in the workplace, whether that be military, whether it be corporate America, wherever you've experienced sexual trauma, turn hurt into healing, by using what I call the impact method, even if you don't feel worthy of change. And so my purpose, my goal is to help women heal, to help them grow, to help them become their best versions of themselves, right? And so I'm also, a certified peer support specialist. I work for the Louisiana Department of Behavioral Health, doing that as well as my own business. I'm also the state leader of a national nonprofit organization called Mission 22. And we raise awareness to the 22 veterans that commit suicide. Because at one point in my life, I was almost one of those 22 veterans. And so now I make it, my heart, my passion is to helping other veterans, helping other women, overcome and turn into the person that they were created to be. Right. And so, yeah, all that is on my website.
Okay, yeah. Can you share the website? I'm gonna, guys. By the way, I'm gonna add the website in the description. But it's always good to hear it. Instagram, TikTok, whatever you use. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, my website is KimberlyCares.info. www.KimberlyCares with an S.info. I have literally all my information on there. You can connect to my Facebook from there, Instagram, all that from there.
But okay. So yeah,
Kimberly. Yeah. Kimberly N as in November Clark.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you very much, Kimberly. I was like a little bit nervous because you are the first guest that interviewed that went to search, the first offer that interviewed, so like, thank you very much. And all right, guys, we'll see each other for the closing statement. All right.
Thanks everyone for listening to this episode of Stairway to Redemption. I would like to thank Kim for being my guest for this episode. I will attach a link to all her socials and her book for those who would like to get it. I would like to wish my listeners in the US a happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you are with friends and family. Special mention and thoughts for those of you guys who are in rehab or in institutions. We didn't forget about you. We're still thinking about you guys. You are not alone. Stay strong and sober. Alright guys, see you next week. Bye.